Welcome everyone to episode 83 of Raw Sport. My name is Ahmed Al-Huli. We're back with another banger and a very special guest in the house tonight, Mr. Tony Tolj. Welcome to Raw Sport, buddy. What's happening?
Thanks for having us on, mate.
Our utmost pleasure. And the man himself, Mr. Rick Glaser, joins me as he does every single week with some inspiring commentary. Rick, how was your week?
It's good. It's good. I'm just waiting for somebody to be up and coming again and see where we can go from there.
That was last week's joke. I asked him about Kermel Morton, Mayweather's protege. Yep. And I go to him, is he up and coming? He goes, from what it seems, but I don't know too much about his sex life. That's what I got to deal with here on Raw Sport. All right, let's go. We had a week of controversies. We had one of the most craziest 24 hours in recent boxing history. We had Canelo Alvarez 1 second fighting Crawford, done deal, Turkey Sheikh negotiating things behind the scenes. Then we get a crazy announcement saying it's all fallen through. Jake Paul's fighting Canelo Alvarez on Netflix. And then rumors started swirling up and down, and there was madness in the house across the board. And then Turkey Sheikh comes out and says something along the lines of, don't mess with the Lions. And he announces a 4-fight deal with Canelo Alvarez, his first fight against a no-namer by the name of William Skull. Again, more talking points and more conversation. Now, what I want to get to is your thoughts on that 24 hours each one. We'll start with you, Tony. What you saw, how you thought things evolved, good for the sport, bad for the sport. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I was like everyone. I see one thing happen 1 minute, then the next minute something different. But seeing Jake Paul and Canelo, I thought that's not going to end well for Jake Paul, but it's going to bring a ton of viewers for the industry. Then that's rubbed His Excellency the wrong way, and then he's ended up with the 4-fight deal and showing you who in boxing, and money dictates everything. And that's a massive coup, getting Canelo for the 4 fights there.
Rick? Roll.
I think it was well described by Tony. That's exactly what happened. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, it's just that Turkey Sheikh was not going to be outgunned, and he came through. And when you think about it, Jake Paul had the backing of Netflix, and they still couldn't compete. So that tells you a lot right there.
There was rumors swirling that at the Benavidez fight, certain individuals from PBC were walking around showing a graphic of Jake Paul versus Canelo as if the deal's done, signed. And that's a week before. I mean, and we'll move into the whole PBC conversation with the outcome of their pay-per-views and so on. I mean, why would they do such a thing when everyone knows in this game nothing's done until it's signed, sealed, and delivered?
It's PBC. They're all fucked up. Well, I mean, it's a dysfunctional organization.
Jeez.
I mean, what can you say that's functional about them?
In boxing, nothing's done until you're actually walking into the ring. Until you walked in.
Wait. Even then, sometimes shit happens. Jesus.
Yeah, that's right.
I was at a show once. The fighter fell off the steps leading up to the ring, fell down, and the commission wouldn't let him fight, even though he said, I'm ready to fight. He says, you can't fight. You hit your head on the floor.
Wow.
So you don't even know then.
We actually had that happen to us in Singapore. We did a show at the Marina Bay Sands, and we're doing the test walkouts, and one of the guys fell off the stage there and hit his head as well. It's unbelievable.
Jeez. Mm-hmm. There you go. All right.
I'll tell you a story real quick. Years ago, there was a fight in a skating rink They put the boards over it, and the guy went in the lavatory to take a whiz before the fight of a 6-round fighter, and the floor was real slippery. He hit his head on the floor and on the ground, and he knocked himself unconscious. And they were waiting for him to come to, when he called, finally the trainer goes, "Where the hell is he?" And they found him in the lavatory. It's about 20 minutes later, knocked unconscious. The commission suspended him for failure to appear for his fight after the guy was accidentally knocked out. He fell down. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
No, that's right.
So,
all right, these negotiations showed that Turkey is definitely in control of boxing. Boxing now has a new home, and that's Saudi Arabia. Okay, big fights are getting moved there. The power in negotiation, distribution, it's all in the hands of the Saudis at the moment. All right. Are we seeing the turn of a leaf here, Rick? This one's coming at you first. Moving boxing out of the United States. This is the opinion that's been debated around the globe, right? The United States is the media market of the world, the biggest media market in the world, the biggest population outside the communist country of China and so on, and India. And now we're seeing that attraction, the boxing moving from the United States and dwindling into other parts of the world. And one of them is Saudi Arabia. Is that good for the sport? Is that good for boxing in the US? We need some clarification here.
I believe it's better for the sport worldwide, but it's not going to help it in the United States. I believe that to be true. But that being said, it's a worldwide sport, and the sport's not becoming a niche sport. The sport is becoming globalized, and that's a big difference. And people aren't getting that. People in the United States, well, there's no big fights. Well, there are big fights. You just don't know where to look because they're not on HBO. They're not on HBO pay-per-view. They're on the Zone, and they come from other areas of the world, and we're not getting the PR over here. But we haven't got PR over here in 15 years before the Saudis came along, and basically at least in 7 years since HBO went off the air. And the Saudis have been around for 2 years. So that there's your answer right there. I believe that overall it's better for the health of boxing. It may be less in the United States, but I also believe when you do bring a big fight here, the fans will be more starved and they'll come out like it's an event, not just a fight.
So fans in the US have been too spoiled for too long.
Correct.
Okay, so the distribution of the sport is better for the sport on a global level. In
Yes.
the US, not so much, but it might work the other way and be a lot more appreciated if the big fights happen there.
Yeah, that's right.
Tony, what do you got to add to that, mate?
I agree with what Rick was saying as well about the PR as well. Like the marketing machine in the US hasn't been what it was since HBO and Showtime have dropped off. And what Rick is saying is true. The globalization of boxing, that's now the hub of world boxing is Saudi. All the big fighters are striving to get on there because that's where all the big fights are being made. And that's all the guys really want to do. They want to fight the best. They want to get paid for what they're doing. And they're getting paid for what they're doing over there.
Absolutely. And one of the key things is that we're actually going to see the best fight the best because Turkey is willing to put on these fights. In the past, it's been the networks in the US that have held grudges against one another, and they've just obstructed all these big fights. So overall, the sport as a whole, I see it's a lot more positive because of that. Moving on. Okay. PBC came out with some numbers, actually not PBC, different sources around the PBC fraternity came out with numbers that Benavidez versus Morel did about 200,000 buys. Our man, Mr. Glaser, tweeted earlier saying, PPV boxing buy numbers for Benavidez versus Morel on social media floated to the media by PPV operatives and put out there by the normal suspects. In truth and reality, it did barely under 70,000 pay-per-view buys. Now you do know. Rick, why are you right and why are they wrong?
Well, I've been putting out numbers since 2014. Well, before then, but from the same source since 2014. And that source is a LA-based entertainment lawyer who's given me the numbers since July 2014, which was Floyd Mayweather and Arturo Gatti on HBO pay-per-view. And my numbers, as Don King and various promoters have told me over the years, my numbers are spot on. So again, there's your answer right there.
Okay.
Longevity counts for a lot.
They said the event did 12,000 people in attendance. I believe the gate did around, from what we've read on Twitter, around $8 million. 70,000 pay-per-views. Is this event a loss? Another loss?
I don't know what they paid the fighters. I know that they expected to do a lot more than 70,000. They'd have to, but I don't think that the 12,000 was real. I know a lot of people that got free tickets, including one guy got 100 of them.
Jeez.
So,
wow, and then that whole Jake Paul fight was meant to be the bag to further give them oxygen to keep going, and they fumbled that too. So,
PBC was trying to leverage Canelo's participation in that fight and their participation in that fight with going on Amazon Prime as a pay-per-view. They were trying to get a deal where Amazon would actually pay them for a series of fights every month, once a month, and they weren't. It was going to go on Netflix anyways. They were selling Amazon pie in the sky. Amazon executives have since found out about it, and they're livid. So Heyman had no control over that situation at all. It was going on Netflix.
Amazon are very shrewd and very well-oiled machine. They're not going to fall.
Yep.
But they got more data than the whole globe, because half the internet is built on AWS, which is their product. But anyway, Tony, what are your thoughts on this debacle, mate? I mean, Rick sometimes gets pointed out to be this anti-PBC guy, even though he's not. It's just he's just releasing facts.
Yeah, well,
what?
Yeah,
what's that?
Rick.
I wrote today on Twitter that my dislike for Al Heyman would never affect my professionalism on the quality of fights that they put on, good or bad, or the numbers that I would put out on a pay-per-view that I'm getting. So believe me when I tell you, I thought the Benavidez fight was excellent. I thought the show was very solid, and I said so on Twitter. Just because I don't like the guy, there's a famous line. I may not like. There's a great line, not famous, but it was a great line. I said to a girl, her father hated me. I said, I like your father. He's a nice guy. He goes, well, he hates you. I said, there's no correlation there. He can hate me as much as he wants. I have to like him.
That's why we said people think you dislike PBC, but you don't. You just reporting the facts.
Well, I dislike PBC, but I do tell the truth. Yes.
Well, there you go. Anyway, Tony, give us your spin on this situation of PBC, looking at it from an Australian perspective, because a lot of their business has been coming. Well, some of their big fights has been coming from Australia. The guys at No Limit, that's been their destination, whether it's Fondura, whether it's the chap from, I can't remember his name, from that beat Tim Tszyu, and now even Keith Thurman and Brock Jarvis. So they seem to be in bed with PBC. Impact. So there's some sort of relationship there that we're seeing building up over time. Do you have that with them? What are your thoughts on this as a whole?
Yeah, well, that's right. As you can see, they got Brock Jarvis and Keith Thurman, and I believe the plan is for the summer in the States, the winner to fight Tim Tszyu, possibly over there or over here.
Well, there you go. Breaking news. Yep.
But yeah, I agree with what Rick is saying. As you mentioned, he's just a numbers guy, so he will always spit out what the real numbers are. And I do believe that was a good show as well. But these days, you just got to have top level shows and keep producing. And yeah, the Amazon deal is looking harder and harder to tie down for PBC.
So where next for them if Amazon falls through? Where are they going to go other than the zone? I mean, who else is going to take them?
The question is, who else is left? The only streaming service left really in the US that's got any interest in boxing is DAZN, and there's been talk.
Probox.
Yeah, ProBox, and I've heard rumblings not with them but other people with HBO Max as well. But there's just not that Showtime HBO around where you can negotiate like that.
Well, ProBox TV did win the bid for the Erickson Lubin fight by like $5,000. I think there is some sort of relationship there between the Cubis and our good friend Mr. Jonas. Do you think that's where their next destination will be, Rick?
I don't know. I'm going to tell you guys something, and I'm going to tweet it tonight.
Perfect.
But I'm going to announce it here first on Raw Sport.
Yep.
I believe that Turkey Al Sheikh is taking a direct shot at PBC and Al Heyman by putting out the pay-per-views at $19.95 to $29.95, and I think he's taking a direct shot at him by the Canelo thing and bringing all the big fights over there. And I think that these are subtle attacks on they're really subtle attacks on PBC. That's my opinion.
Tony, you got anything to add?
I can say that everything that Rick said is spot on true. The pay-per-view prices have been very high these days, and the money these days is harder to find for the general public, and bringing it down to $20, that just changes the game completely.
Absolutely, especially if he's willing. But what does that tell us as fans of the sport, that the sport was feasible at $29.99, or does it tell us he's willing to pay the difference?
It shows that he's got the power to dictate what he wants to do when he wants to do it.
But from an economic standpoint, right, which is really important for fans, because for a long time, especially Dana White used to harp on this a lot. He used to say the biggest problem with promoters in boxing is that every event is a going out of business sale. And therefore, the pay-per-view price is $74.99, $79.99. Even like in Australia, sometimes to watch Tim Tszyu, the local fight, we're going to have $50 to $70. I mean, sometimes it's just extravagant. And fans ask themselves, is this price point really needed for the sport, for that event, to be number one, profitable, number two, be able to put on a good production, and number three, keep the sport sustainable? Or are the promoters really going out of their way to just make as much money as they can every single event, as Dana's saying? Rick?
Well, I believe, this is my opinion, but there's going to be a certain amount of people that are going to buy pay-per-view no matter what the price is, whether it's $100 or $50. Then there's the other part that are going to try to steal it, whether it was $1 or $100. They're still going to try to steal it. It's ingrained in them. They're thieves. That's what they are.
Yeah.
So he's trying to bring it back down to a medium where a whole family can sit there and watch the fights and enjoy them, or one guy can sit there and watch them, enjoy them without feel like he got gouged. I have to respect that. He's bringing boxing back to the masses, but still not putting it on free TV, but attempting to do better for the fans. Now, years ago, I stopped calling boxing fans. I call them boxing enthusiasts, because it's the only sport you're paying for while you're watching it from home. Every other sport from home you watch for free, and boxing you pay for. So I call them enthusiasts, not fans. I think they deserve a higher class word than fans because they're paying for the event from home. I believe that Turkey El Sheik's going to bring back boxing back to the masses worldwide with lower pay-per-view prices in the UK. Not lower, but maintaining low prices already that were in the UK and lowering the price in the United States and Canada and various other pay-per-view areas. Yeah, I think he's doing a hell of a job. I commend him for it, and I like it. And if he's taking a shot, like I think he is, at PBC, I'm enjoying that too.
But is it feasible, Rick? This is my question here. That's why I gave you the two scenarios or the three scenarios. Is it a feasible strategy past Turkey one day? Turkey's not going to be around forever.
Yes, yes,
we all know
it's definitely feasible because more people will start to watch boxing again because it's $20 and not $80 and some of these wacky prices. So I believe it's going to really help. Even if it's $29.95, it's not $80 and $99 and all these crazy figures.
Tony?
Yeah, the more that you can get the masses to watch the industry, the more that you can create superstars because you've got so many eyes watching the product.
Yeah.
And then once you get a superstar, and then there's buzz, there's excitement, people want to see it, and then that feeds off into other events and the whole industry. So I believe it's a good thing, and it would be sustainable.
Now Tony knows Japanese boxing. Okay, Tony's more of an expert in the Japanese boxing than I am. He will tell you this. Inui's in a big fight over there against a legitimate challenger, 35,000 people show up. They put 3 or 4 world title fights on the same show, and Inui's not on. They still draw 15, 18,000 people. Those kind of shows, the United States don't draw 7,500 or 8,000 people. Right, Tony?
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. I'm actually leaving on Sunday to Japan for Jason Maloney. He's fighting over there. And there's 3 world title fights on that show, and that's at I think 15 or 18,000 seat venue, and virtually all the tickets are already gone for that one as well.
There you go.
Tony, you, as Rick mentioned, you spent a bit of time in Japan. What are they doing right? How are they getting 52 million people to watch boxing? And how are they filling up 55,000 people stadiums?
It's embedded into their culture. It's a mainstream sport over there, and it gets treated that way by the news, the media. So when a guy wins the world title, he's celebrated. It's not just like, he's won another fight. This guy.
They're considered noble sportsmen over there. Where over here in the United States, a lot of these fighters are basically considered thugs and street urchins. Where over there, they're considered nobles. Another thing is, because it's so popular over there, they have so many sponsors, and they're always on TV in between fights, making public appearances, which we don't get over here. They're basically heroes over there.
So
Tony?
That's right. Even in our last fight, when the Tokyo Dome, there's 55,000 people there. Jason Maloney fought there. We're leaving the venue. We got stopped for, I would say, no less than 1.5 hours, him taking photos and signing autographs. And everyone that was there knew him and was a big fan of his.
And he comes back to Australia and he's just like a normal average Joe bloke, which boggles your mind.
That's right.
All right. If we go back a step, and I'm happy you actually brought this up, Rick, about the commercialization of sponsorship and brands. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a former executive at the NFL and has helped the NFL go into new markets and so on. And we were talking about the commercialization of boxing from a corporate perspective. It's never been there. Why is that?
Because the fighters win and lose, and as soon as they lose, they treat fighters that lose like second-class citizens, and the corporations want to stay with the fighters on top, and they don't last. A lot of them don't last that long, so they don't want to put money up. Number one. Number two is they have a bad reputation, in and out of jail, getting arrested. I mean, look at the Charlos. They've been arrested more times in the last 5 years than they fought.
So why don't we flip the script, Rick? Why don't we work in pushing the organizations, these big promotional companies? Top Rank's got over 20 million followers online. PPC's got millions. All they have millions. Why isn't it coming from a
Because
corporation aspect?
boxing's considered by corporate America. Boxing's considered the red light district of professional sports, and a lot of people want to shy away from it. They look at Bob Arum and Dodd King like they look at gangsters. Not to say they're gangsters, but they had that kind of connotation.
Tony, why do you think this is not the case in Australia? Like, what's the story? What are we lacking other than being a small sport? Why can't we get the big names?
Well, we're on the improve, I think. But again, we've got football, we've got Australian rules football, we've got rugby, we've got soccer, we've got tennis, we got cricket. We've got so many sports. There's only so much room that you've got in the media, and like Rick was saying, you got to have that media platform behind you to support you. Like you very rarely see someone on the back page of the sports section. It'll always be one of the mainstream media, especially you've got the AFL and the rugby that just dominates everything here.
So I'm going to challenge you both now. The UFC has managed to do this, and that was illegal in some states at some stage. The UFC was in Sydney last weekend. The Premier of New South Wales was sitting down with Dana White on a podcast. All the big brands were in the house. All the influencers locally in Australia were there, right? Why are they able to do it, and why are we not able to do it?
Because they have no competition. They bought off all their competition. They bought out like 9 other platforms over the years. And if you took boxing, which is what Turkey Al Sheikh's trying to do, put it under one roof, where he's the Dana White, and everybody else is like high-priced minions. You know, the Frank Warrens, the Eddie Hearns, the Bob Arums. That's what he's trying to do himself.
Okay, so it's in motion, basically.
Basically,
yeah.
Tony, I don't want this to cause you any headaches. No Limit, what they're doing back home. Rick, don't worry about the Fundora fight. We'll leave that alone. What they're doing back home, they've brought in brands like JD, G'd Up, and all these other brands as commercial partners. They're taking up spots on Fox. Fox is invested.
You talking about the Roses?
Yeah.
You mean the no rematch clause Roses? Those 2 clowns?
Let's stay objective. Let's stay objective, Rick. Tony, are we seeing that to a certain extent?
Here they're doing a good job. They're getting the mainstream support behind them, which have been lacking for a very long time. They got mainstream sponsors as well, so full credit to them.
Okay, so locally they're doing a great job. Okay, now let's move on. You were at the launch of the Undisputed game in London, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
How was that? Take us through it. You know, some of the updates, what's going on, so on and so on.
Yeah, that was great. That was last weekend. I've been on the ground floor from maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So to see it to come to fruition is very exciting. There was a lot of big names over there. There was Mickey Ward, Roy Jones Jr., Sean Porter, Katie Taylor, Mia Khan was there, Butterbean was there, and it was a massive thing over there. That was to have the UK launch of the PlayStation and Xbox release. And there was supposed to be a couple other guests as well, but they couldn't make it. There was supposed to be Lupe Fiasco. He's actually in the game. Pereira was supposed to come as well, but that didn't come off. And as I was leaving the same day, Mark Wahlberg was coming. He's supposed to be in the game too. Not sure if I'm supposed to say that or not.
All right, who's pushing this game, and why is it going to be successful?
It's Steel City in the UK. That's the company, but they've got several investors. I believe our friend Turkey Al-Shea has been an investor as well. There's a couple of other guys that I shouldn't really mention that because they want to be left behind the scenes. But there's a lot of money coming into the gaming, and that's another thing. I believe it's a good thing because that goes to the masses, and then you've got the next generation of kids that all want to play it. But then it's got historical names too, because it's not just the new generation. You've got I believe there's Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Manny Pacquiao, Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward, Barrera Morales, all those past names as well.
So you've been involved in this since its inception.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I wouldn't envy you because did you have to go and get licensing deals done with all these names?
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't me. It wasn't just me. I've got a lot of guys in, but there's been Todd Grisham as well from America. He's got a lot of these guys' names in the game. Initially, it was just supposed to be the end goal was to be the English title, and they were pitching that to me how that's a big thing, and I said, "Mate, between us, no one really gives a shit about that." I said you need to have all the sanctioning bodies in there. You need to have the WBC, the WBA, WBO, IBF, Ring Magazine, and now apart from the WBA, they're all in there because the WBA wanted exclusivity, and now they're the only ones that aren't in it.
So can you take us through a scenario, as in how these fighters are being incentivized or paid, basically? Because let's say Sugar Ray Leonard, are they doing deals with them? Is it a yearly deal, annual? I just want to go behind the scenes a bit, just to give fans some understanding of how complicated these things are to actually put together.
Yeah, they're different deals for some guys, but majority they're on quarterly payments. They get X amount of units, X amount of cents per unit sold.
Okay.
And other guys will get more for the bigger name that they've got, and some less.
Yeah.
Some guys are just there, and they're downloadable characters, and they only get paid once someone downloads their character.
Okay, interesting. So now this game, are we going to see these launches in other countries outside the UK?
I believe so. They've got an office in Vegas, and there's talk of having an office in the Asia Pacific region.
In Perth?
Yeah, possibly.
Rick, what do you know about the game?
I just know Tony's involved and Todd Grisham's involved and some of the fighters, and I think it's a good thing. Like I said, it's like Tony said, it's going to bring people, the masses to boxing, and it's all good. There's no question about it.
There was
every little bit helps.
There was a lot of talk about EA getting involved, and they never did. Do you know why, Tony?
Yes, they're cornering the market, basically. From my understanding, EA Sports because they've got the UFC and it's making truckloads of money. They had exclusivity for combat sports, so they said we only want to have the UFC in there and nothing else. That's from my understanding. I may be wrong.
Interesting. We would have thought you would want to have both. I mean, because hey, if you have the UFC, make a ton of money, the boxing's up and coming, you capture the other side of the market, you've got everything. Why would you stay away from it?
You're using that expression again, up and coming.
Rick, why do you think they've stayed away from it? Like, let's be hypothetical here, but let's get a bit, because for a long time it just did not exist.
I don't know enough about it to to give an expert
Okay.
opinion.
Well, I'll go in there as well, just to talk what Rick was saying before about how fractured boxing is sometimes. If you get names in, then you're going to have top-ranked fighters. You're going to have PBC fighters. You're going to have matchroom fighters. You're going to have Queensberry fighters.
Wow. So it's very complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll keep going. There's a question from the audience. It's for you, Rick. We'll just quickly dive on it. Rick, does Turkey own the Ring magazine with his money or the government's money? From Sylvia.
His own.
His own money. There you go, Sylvia Brown. And she
Yeah.
just asked us another one. Rick, could we see boxing on CBS or NBC? Danny Garcia versus Keith Thurman did good numbers on CBS.
I don't believe going forward in the immediate future we will. No.
There you go. All right. Tony, you have an upcoming promotion, Thunderdome 49. What can you tell us, my friend? And who's fighting and what's the occasion about?
That's going to be the 14th of March. That's
Yep.
going to be a Metro City. There's 14 professional fights on the night. The main event's going to be Jude Grant. He's going to take on a boxer from China, and that's another test. He's stepping up opponents there, and we're trying to get him into the WBC Grand Prix, which is part of the Riyadh season. And that's the main event there. Then we've also got young up-and-comer Joel Lewis taking on veteran Corey Fano for a state title. We've got Josh Byrne and Habib Kariaka.
Yeah.
And then we've got quite a few pro debuts coming on as well. It's a lot of the next generation fighters.
Yeah.
And there's about, I think, 3 cruiserweight fights as well. So it's going to be an action-packed night coming up.
Awesome. There you go, ladies and gents. Thunderdome 49, March 14th. We'll put a link where you can learn more about the event. All right, Rick, from my perspective, that's all I got for you this week. Do you have any parting words for us, Ricky, before we close off with Tony?
Just glad to have Tony on here. I'd like to thank Tony for coming on. And I'd like to have Tony back another time in the near future. And hopefully it'll be something good he can talk about himself, because he's so low. He keeps such a low profile himself, and he doesn't really talk about his own fighters too much. And we'd like to have you on again, may I say. And speaking for the both of us, like to have you on again. And, it's always a pleasure. You're a guy who's well received throughout the world of professional boxing, and nobody's looking to put 2 behind your ear like 50% of the people looking to put 2 behind my ear.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it.
I actually agree with you there, Rick. He's pretty underrated, to be quite honest. Tony Tolj, thank you very much, buddy. I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. As Rick said, you're always welcome, mate. Do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, everyone tune in. Fox Sports, February 24. That's where Jason Maloney fights Tenshin from Japan, and that's going to be a big fight coming up with 3 world titles, a sold-out stadium in Tokyo.
Is that free on Fox Sports in Australia?
Free on Fox Sports.
1, 2, or 3?
I'm not sure. All of it.
All right. There's more details to come then. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all those who tuned in. And tonight, actually, we have a special milestone. We went live on Twitch for the first time, expanding our coverage and our footprint with our very special guest, Mr. Tony Tolj. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me